Hello, my name is Kathy Bissell. Welcome to the Golf Show 2.0. This week we're celebrating the Open Championship, which we in the States tend to call the British Open to separate it from our US Open, but they know it and the rest of the world knows it as the Open Championship. Gary, why don't you introduce our guests? And have one of them in a very special location.
Well, we've got Open Championship, paraphernalia, collections, memorabilia, fun stuff. Our pal George Petro's back. And we've from overseas, the magic of the internet, we've got Dr. Blyth Bell. And I think we're going to see some pretty cool stuff today. George, what did you bring to show and tell about the Open Championship today?
Yeah, I'll tell you what we got. It's pretty clear that folks know that the first Open Championship was in 1860, and prior to that,
Kathy was in grade school then.
Yeah, and I can barely remember it myself. But certainly it started in 1860. Prior to that, most of the tournaments were individual clubs amongst amateurs, and there wasn't really a national kind of tournament. And then, the top golfers were essentially the professional caddies in the 1840s, 1850s. And that was like people like Ellen Robertson and Tom Morris from St. Andrews. And it was, the Parks from Musselborough and the Dunn family. And they would play big, huge money matches against each other. So there was some money to be made and lots of betting was going on, huge dollars. But anyway, at Prestwick, they finally started in 1860. Ellen Robertson passed away in 1859. So 1860 was a great time to have the first Open. Turned out the Open was played at Prestwick for the first 12 years at Prestwick. And essentially, Willie Park Sr., because he ended up having a famous son, and Old Tom, because he had a famous son, almost traded. They won essentially all but one of the first 8 Opens. And then came along Old Tom's son, Young Tom. And so in 1868, 69, and 70, he won the Open. And he was the player. Because he won it 3 times, the championship belt, which is what they played for at that time, was retired. That was the custom of the time. And so he became the personal owner of that. So they had nothing to play for in 1870. So there's no tournament in 1871. He won 68, 69, and 70. So no tournament in 71. So in 72, they had to come up with something else. And they had to come up with a medal rather than give away the main trophy. And the medal is called the Golf Champions Trophy. So it was the trophy. And at the end of the tournament, you'll hear them say, and the champion player of the year and a winner of the gold medal. And that's still what it is. So you win a gold medal. Okay. So Young Tom won the 4th time when they resumed in 1872. Young Tom won the first one of these 1872. This one is not Young Tom's. Young Tom's is at the R&A Museum. But this is from 1874. And it's actually Willie Park's brother won this in 1874. So they look like this. This is what the medals look like from 1872 to 1891. And then they started to look like this round medal. And Blythe's got plenty of these. And this is from 1949. This is one that Bobby Locke won. It was called the Broken Bottle Open. It was kind of interesting because it was a match between Bobby Locke, famous putter, won 4 Opens. And Harry Bradshaw hit his ball just off the fairway into a broken bottle. Sitting in the broken bottle. He didn't know what to do, so he had to smash it out. Made double. Oh. Bobby Locke that got him in a playoff. Bobby Locke went on to win. So there's always a story associated with all these various medals.
George, where on earth did you get those?
That's interesting. I gotta say that this one, coming back to this one, I'm glad you asked. I was on a quest to find a British Open medal, and I started collecting in 1892. So 1892, that was a little early. In 1992, everything in my mind is 1800s. And so Bobby Locke's collection was going up at Christie's, London. And the week before the Open at Sandwich that year in 93. And so I said, I got to go. Well, what you do is usually the flights from the States leave in the evening, and they get there about 8 o'clock in the morning. And as you probably know, in London. So I scoot right over to the auction. I am exhausted. I am disheveled, and I'm wearing t-shirts, shorts, sandals. And I walk in the building, and the person, and this is a pretty high-class place in London. Well, I know nothing. This is my first time to Britain. So the guy at the desk, I just walk in the door, and he looks down, looks up, looks down, looks up, and he goes, "Golf's in the back." And I was like, I wonder how he knew I was going to the golf. Well, anyway, there were 130 Bobby Locke items in that auction, all 4 of his gold medals. And this one happened to go for the most, unfortunately, because that's the way things go. Well, the entire auction for Bobby Locke stuff went for just over $300,000, which is good money. I mean, I'm not $300,000. I mean, that's good. And this was about $40,000, so it happened to be the most expensive item in the auction. But I walk out now, I get it, and I'm exhausted being up all night on the plane. And I walk out to the front of the building, and you pay your money, and they hand you what you won. The auction was still going on. And the end of the story is an elderly woman walks over to me and says, "I have 3 of those." I go, "Sure you do. I mean, here's some crackpot." And I talked to her for a while. She's a very nice lady. And finally, "Who are you?" She goes, "I'm Henry Cotton's daughter." So Henry Cotton went through, and she was there to see what they went for in case she just wanted to know what her stuff was worth. Well, as I'm talking to her, I'm sitting on the edge, and this is the end of this story. I'm sitting on the edge of a desk, and it's a cool desk in the front hallway. And 2 people run over to me. I've been sitting there for a minute, and they run over and say, hey, off the desk. And I go, "Oh, it was just sitting out here, no chairs." 2 guys pick it up and carry it in to the main auction room, not the one in the back where the golf was. They carry it in, I followed in, and up they bring it on stage. That desk sold for $2.9 million. And I went, 130 Bobby Locke items, including 4 gold medals, went for 300. So it was like, I kind of knew that there's some heavy duty collecting going on in this world. So what was interesting to top this off, and then you can boot me. When I went out to the course a couple of days later, I'd owned the medal, right? Well, that lady tapped me on the shoulder out on the course, and I'm watching Norman, who was winning the tournament and did go on to win. And she says, "They want to see you in the clubhouse." I went, "They want to see me in the clubhouse? I mean, nobody gets in this clubhouse. They won't let pros in there. They wouldn't let the top pros wanted to see it." And they bring me inside and take me through the whole thing. I got a camera. I put my camera. I started taking it. No, put the camera away. And I go, "Why did they take me through this beautiful Royal St. George's clubhouse? Personal tour." And as I get to the front door, "Thank you." And he goes, "By the way, on your passing, if you would like to consider donating that medal, we'd be happy." So when you collect stuff or belong to the Golf Heritage Society, meet people, go places. So that's what happened with this medal. Everyone's got a story, of course.
Oh, so you didn't donate it?
Well, I'm still alive. Despite being around in 1860. I'm going to try to get it to him somehow.
Yeah. George, that's incredible. Dr. Bell, I can see stuff on the wall in your room there. Tell us where you are and tell us some of the amazing treasures you've got from the Open.
Okay. Many thanks for inviting me. The stuff I've got on the wall, this is the lull before the storm of next week. And we will be invaded next week by the world of golf. And it's beautiful and quiet at the moment. I'm speaking from the club room at Royal Liverpool Golf Club, Hoylake. And in the background, you can see many of our captains going back. Each captain has his picture on the wall. And also behind me is a memorial to all the members who lost their lives in World War I. And there were many of them. But this is my favorite room in the golf, bar none. And it just gives it a bit of authenticity, really.
You don't feel like you're alone when you're sitting in that room, do you?
No, there are ghosts of champions going back 150 years here. No, it's a lovely room. And the construction's going on outside. It's blowing hard. It's absolutely lashing down. But we're here able to speak to you.
Well, it sounds like the golf course is not going to be totally brown like it was when Tiger won.
No, it was brown 4 weeks ago. It was tinder dry and starting to play quite quickly, but the change in the jet stream and weather coming in from the west has changed that completely. But so it won't be as hard and as firm as we would like it, but hopefully we'll get some sunny weather before the Open, and there's going to be a breeze, I think, which is good.
Excellent. So how
Dr. Bell, can you tell us how Liverpool got to have a royal designation? You can't
Yes,
just
of course.
stick that on your club name and have it be a stamp of approval from the royal family. Something has to happen.
Yeah. All these royal prefixes and permissions happened in different ways, really, in history. But our club dates from 1869, and the ambitious men that came down from Scotland, they wanted Hoylake to be as good as Prestwick or St Andrews, and they spent no time in going about that, really. They were wealthy traders. Cotton, sugar, grain, everything traded out of Liverpool at that time. Liverpool was the second port of the empire, and these commercial men came down, and they brought their game with them. So it started off as a 9-hole course in 1869, and in 1871 they extended it to 18 holes, and it happened to be the same year that it became a royal club. So within 2 years, it had gone from a 9-hole course to a royal club destination of 18 holes. So it was pretty meteoric stuff at the time. But the connection is probably from our second captain, Colonel Edmund Kennard, who was a conservative politician. He was a colonel in the 8th Hussars, and he had connections to the royal family. And through the Duke of Connaught and Strathearn, Prince Arthur, who was the 7th child and 3rd son of Queen Victoria, we were thereby granted permission to use the royal title. So we've been royal since 1871, which is great, actually. But there are all sorts of royal clubs all over the world, and some of them are entirely forgettable. But most of them came about. Most of them. That's a bit harsh, really. But most of them, came about in a different way.
Yeah, I played Royal St. Augustine in Florida, and trust me, it's not harsh to say it's not royal.
It's not on my bucket list, Gary, certainly.
Yes.
Well, there was someone who did a book on the royal clubs, I want to say within the last 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years. And so before that, I had no idea, but I learned a little bit there, and I thought you'd perhaps have some kind of a story, and you did. So can you tell us a little bit about what the club has there in terms of, I mean, you're one of the club historians, and so there's a lot of history there.
We've got history coming out of our ears, to be honest, but the
sounds like George.
In such a short time, the main things really, the 3 main stories, if I'm concentrating on it, is the story of 2 of our greatest amateurs, John Ball Jr. and Harold Hilton, who took up golf and grew up with the early days of the club, and both of them became Open champions. Ball won the 1890 Open Championship at Prestwick, and he became the first Englishman and the first amateur to win the Open Championship, which was previously the domain of these hard-bitten mercenary Scottish professionals.
Right.
And our other great man was Harold Hilton, also from Hoylake, and he won 2 Open championships. He won the Open as a young man in 1892 at Muirfield, and he won our first Open here in 1897. So he became the second amateur and the second Englishman to win the Open championship. But so it was a hotbed of enthusiasm and tutelage, and it was a place for golf, and it was a place that grew golf and grew people. And you know, Bernard Darwin described Hoylake as blown upon by mighty winds, breeder of mighty champions, and I think Ball and Hilton personify that really. The other main thing that's happened in our history is Bobby Jones won the second leg of the Grand Slam, the Impregnable Quadrilateral in 1930 at Hoylake, and that, you know, arguably the greatest achievement in the world of sport, far less golf. Being part of that at Hoylake has been a huge boost to our credibility, our connections, it gets us connected, and it gives us a legitimacy that, you know, and it was just luck that it wasn't luck that Bobby Jones won, but it was pure skill. But we were fortunate indeed that he happened to win one of the events at Hoylake in 1930. So they would be the 3 things in my, you know, that would stand out in my mind. And we have portraits and of Jones and Ball and Hilton on our stairs. We have their medals. They are in the DNA of Royal Liverpool, really. And yes, they would be the main things I would mention.
Well, it doesn't hurt to have Tiger Woods on your list of champions either. I mean, that's
no,
that's a good name to have on there.
Well, it took us a while to get the Open back, but in 2006, when we got it back, there was all sorts of anxiety. You know, will the course be good enough? Will the course be well conditioned enough? You know, how will the crowds behave? You know, is it a big enough venue for a modern Open championship? And so there was lots of panic attacks going on in the lead up to the Open, and as it unfolded, and the weather was it was a complete drought, desert conditions, and it got hotter and hotter, and the leaderboard shaped up better and better, and Tiger Woods won the Open, and all our anxieties dissipated almost immediately, and it gave our venue a legitimacy right there and then. And to have the best golfer in the world at that time to win an Open championship, everything else is forgotten, and it becomes a venue of stature again, which was great.
Well, what I remember is Sergio Garcia was in the mix, and the last day he wore this all yellow outfit.
He did.
And my all-time favorite tabloid headline the next day was, "Sergio, you'll never be top banana."
There were other quotes given by other people that I couldn't possibly comment on. Every bit is appropriate.
Dr. Bell, do you have? Does the club have? You're in the history. You're in the room there with a lot of history. Are there a lot of old medals and artifacts, or on display for the members to look at, or do you mostly have photographs?
Yes.
Or is everything under lock and key?
Everything's under lock and key, but I did send some images through.
Yes.
Of a couple of little bits that I thought people would be interested in. We've recently redone our cabinets for this Open Championship, and everything is sort of bespoke mounted and sort of suspended in there. And I really didn't want to get in about it this morning and disrupt things, but I have sent you some images of some of the artwork and the medalry, which people might find interesting, that help to tell the story.
George, have you been to all of the venues on the Open Championship in your travels?
I have not been to all. I've only been.
Shouldn't that be a bucket list for you?
It should be. And I plan on going back. And I mean, I used to go every year to the Open in the 90s and then early 2000s. And I was there for Tiger's win in 2000, which was, more than cool. But I want to go back because I now know so much more about the history of these places. Yeah. And so I got to go back and enjoy them more thoroughly than I enjoyed them the first time. So, that's my plan.
Are those medals? That's your top Open Championship souvenir? Yeah,
I mean, the medals probably are, because I'm kind of a medal guy, though. Maybe I'll show you two. Got time for two items, because they're two of my favorites, because they actually relate to Hoylake in a way. One of the Opens, which Blythe knows much more about than I do, was in 1907, and that's the first time a non-Brit won the British Open. And that was a Frenchman, Arnaud Massey. And he was quite the player. And he played, he was multiple times French Open champion. And but he was well liked in Britain and played the courses there. But it was kind of a disappointment to the triumvirate guys that he won the British Open. So it was J.H. Taylor who actually ended up winning the 1913, his fifth at Hoylake also. But after 1907, they said, we got to go back and win that darn French Open. So here's the winner's medal for the 1908 French Open. J.H. Taylor, after Massey took the 07, they went and took the 08. But J.H. Taylor, who was not a rich man, took his medal, his 1908 medal, and built this surround, the sterling silver French Open champion. Fits nicely in there with a little stand. And that was sitting, at his house. So
that's unbelievable.
J.H. Taylor was pretty much into defending, and he did it. He pulled it off in 8. The last thing maybe I'll show you, because we're right here, because I do like the triumvirate guys. This is one of my favorites. This is a bowl. This has nothing to do with Hoylake, but this is a bowl.
I can't believe you have this stuff. It's incredible.
If you're crazy enough and eat Spam for a lot of years instead of steak. And this trophy, Southhurst, when Vardon won his 6th British Open, of course, that's the record. It remains the record. Tom Watson almost got there. And so that, his Southhurst gave him that bowl as appreciation. I mean, I have this one photo, and right here in the corner, where is it? This probably the biggest bowl there. That's this particular bowl. Luckily, I do have most of the other ones. I got them in a crazy auction. We won't go there. That's an hour discussion, but I'm not getting most of the trophies. Here he is standing, because Blythe mentioned, you can see Vardon is there, the black armband over here. And because this was during World War I and honoring all the deaths and amazing, the carnage that happened in World War I. So anyway, there's other stuff, but
that's great.
I want to see what else Blythe has to say.
Yeah, Dr. Bell, do some tour players come by and play the course the rest of the year? I mean, other than like the week before, and are they interested in the history of the club and the Open at Royal Liverpool?
It's difficult to tell, really. We do get the odd tour pro coming through. We've had a few more recently for obvious reasons, but yes, I think certainly the more mature players are certainly interested on the course. And I'm reminded in 2006 when Ernie Els played in the Open Championship, and he came into the clubhouse, and as did Vijay Singh and some others. These days, the players have their own creche, their own dining, they are taken away from the interior of the club, really. But Els had won an amateur tournament here when he was about 16, and he came into the club and reminisced about, what he did in I think it was the late 80s. But I think certainly the more mature players are more engaged with the history of the game. That's for sure. But sadly, we don't get the direct contact with the players in our clubhouse as we used to do. So it's a different experience. But,
so you haven't played cards and had a pint with Tiger in the clubhouse?
He doesn't play cards. He's not a gambling man.
Well, Gary, do you want to ask your usual question that you ask when we wind up one of these?
And what question is that?
Who do you think is going to win, Gary?
Oh, well, I'm sorry for forgetting that. Look, we can't pass up this opportunity. There's still a week to go, but who do you like? Who do you like to win the Open at Royal Liverpool, George? We'll start with you.
Oh boy, that's a good one. Rory Rory already won one. He knows the course. He hasn't won since 24. He hasn't won a major since he won at Hoylake in 14. So I guess if I'm going to pull for somebody, it'd probably be Rory. It'll be interesting to see what Cam Smith does after last year. But yeah, I guess I'll pull for Rory.
All right, Kathy, I'm going to save the expert for last, which is Dr. Bell. Kathy, who do you have?
I'm going for Ricky Fowler, or Rick, as he's now called.
He's now Rick?
Yeah.
He didn't tell me that.
That's what his friends call him, Rick.
I have a funny feeling about Cameron Smith, but Dr. Bell, have you got you're on top of it's pouring rain there, so the course is going to play a little softer, perhaps. What do you think?
Okay, well, I'm going to introduce two names from left field for you. Last week at West Lancs, one of our young amateurs who grew up at Hoylake, who now plays on the European Tour, he qualified for the Open Championship at West Lancs in regional qualifying. His name is Matthew Jordan. And if it blows, he knows how to get around here in low numbers. He's a fantastic young player. And he may not go on to win the Open, but he's got a great chance of making the cut. And the members would be ecstatic if he could do that. The other thought, last night, Ludwig Eberg, the great Swedish hope,
yes,
qualified for the Open Championship with a good finish at the John Deere. And I watched him at Lytham when he played an amateur a couple of years ago. I think he's a fantastic golfer. And those are just maybe not names to win, but maybe names for the future.
I'm going to DraftKings as soon as we get off here and get a couple of wagers down. Those are great picks on Inside Knowledge. Those are great picks.
Well, you get them at about 300 to 1, and an each way bet, and you never know.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's what happened with Daly in '95. He did it.
Well, Ben Curtis, I don't know what his odds were, but
yeah,
bigger than big. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a privilege to.
I think you got everyone in the mood for the Open, so this is great.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
And Dr. Bell, we hope you have a great week. George, it's wonderful to see you again. And Gary, I'm glad we finally got you hooked up to the telecast.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Bell, thanks for bringing up some names like Harold Hilton and just giving us a few drippings of all the history we got there at Royal Liverpool. That's just it's a privilege to hear about that stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it immensely, and anything to whet the appetite of the the American golf fan is good.